Once upon a time, in ancient Greek folklore, there were minor female nature deities known as nymphs. These unique goddesses were different from other Greek goddesses due to their connection with nature and association with a particular place or landform. More specifically, these divine beings were often depicted as maidens, and they were immortal like other goddesses unless they were hamadryads whose lives depended upon a specific tree. These beautiful creatures were categorized into subgroups such as the Melii, Dryads, Naiads, Nereids, and Oreads. Each subgroup had their unique features. For instance, the Melii were nymphs of the ash tree, while Naiads were associated with freshwater bodies such as springs, fountains, and flowing rivers. The Nereids were sea nymphs and were daughters of Nereus, the ancient god of the sea. Nymphs were often depicted in classic works of art, literature, mythology, and fiction, and their influence has lasted for centuries. From the Middle Ages onward, they became popularly associated, or even confused with fairies. In Greek mythology, every natural place had its resident nymph, and it was believed that by calling their names, they could be invoked for guidance and protection. Nymphs also had romantic connections with gods and goddesses, such as Artemis, the goddess of the hunt, who was attended by a group of virgin nymphs known as the Oreads. Even Heracles, the son of Zeus, was successful in wooing many nymphs. Their association with nature has immortalized these divine beings in art and literature, and nymphs remain influential figures even in modern culture. Their story serves as a reminder of the bond between humans and nature, and how divine beings can protect and guide us through the natural world. One of the most famous stories involving nymphs was that of Echo. Echo was a nymph who was punished by the goddess Hera for distracting her from her husband Zeus' affairs. Echo was cursed so that she could only repeat the last words that were spoken to her. One day, Echo met the handsome Narcissus and fell in love with him. However, Narcissus was arrogant and cruel, and he rejected Echo's advances. Heartbroken, Echo retreated to a cave and wasted away until only her voice remained. Narcissus, meanwhile, fell in love with his own reflection and tragically died staring at himself in a pool. This story is a cautionary tale about the dangers of vanity and the consequences of rejecting love. Once upon a time, there was a small village nestled among the mountains of Greece. Despite being surrounded by nature, the villagers rarely ventured out beyond the safety of their homes. That was until the day Giannis decided to go on a hiking trip to one of the nearby streams. As Giannis walked along the winding path, he heard the soft sound of music and laughter coming from the distance. Intrigued, he followed the sound until he reached a clearing, where he saw a group of women dancing gracefully. He watched them in awe, but as he tried to speak to them, they disappeared into thin air. Confused and afraid, Giannis ran back to the village, where the villagers told him that he had encountered a group of nymphs. They explained that these beautiful nature spirits had been a part of Greek mythology for centuries, surviving well into the 20th century as Nereids. Giannis couldn't believe it. He had always thought that nymphs were just a myth, but now he understood that they were a real part of the country's cultural heritage. From then on, Giannis told everyone he knew about his amazing encounter with the nymphs. Over time, many other villagers began to venture out into the mountains, hoping to catch a glimpse of the nymphs for themselves. Some even claimed to have seen the nymphs bathing in streams or dancing in the moonlight. Even though encountering a nymph was risky, with the potential to lead to serious consequences, the villagers couldn't resist the allure of the nature spirits. And despite the dangers, the nymphs continued to captivate the Greek imagination up until the early 20th century. In the end, Giannis realized that the beauty of the country's natural heritage was not just confined to the realm of mythology, but rather was a reality that still existed and could still be experienced. During the Renaissance period in Europe, new motif emerged in art that captured the imagination of many, a statue of a nymph sleeping in a grotto or spring. The motif's source of inspiration could be traced back to an Italian report on a Roman sculpture of a nymph at a fountain above the river Danube. The report was accompanied by a poem that was said to describe the sleeping nymph, which further fueled the imagination of artists and landscape gardeners across Europe. Despite the initial inspiration being from a Roman sculpture, the popularity of the motif soared during the Renaissance period, with many artists incorporating it into their works. However, it is now believed that the report and its accompanying poem were forged documents from the 15th century, adding another layer to the story of the enduring motif. Despite its dubious origins, the image of a sleeping nymph in a grotto or spring resonated deeply with many people, leading it to become a popular theme in art and literature. The representation of the nymph's innocence and purity against the roughness of the surrounding rocks added to its appeal. Over the centuries, the influence of the motif continued to grow. It could be seen in neoclassical gardens such as the grotto at Stourhead, where the tranquility of the sleeping nymph was used to create a peaceful and serene environment. In conclusion, the motif of a nymph sleeping in a grotto or spring had a profound impact on the world of art and gardens, its influence continuing to be seen in outdoor spaces today. Its beauty and serenity serve as a reminder of the enduring power of nature to inspire and comfort those who seek it out.
Do you want to explore more Greek mythology stories? Who do you want to see featured next? Subscribe and leave a comment below to let me know. I'll see you in the next video.